everyone. I would like to thank you very much, especially the SOURCE project, for having me here with you today. And well, I would like to say at the very beginning a couple of words about myself. So in our unit, I'm a policy officer and project officer, dealing mostly with societal aspects of security research. So I've been managing many FP7 projects as well as Horizon 2020 projects. And since I'm kind of the only person in our unit dealing with the societal issues, this is really close to my heart, so to say. And recently, because our unit, originally is coming from DG GROW, and now is part of DG Home, we have also some standardization activities, so developing standards. So one of this activity is something that I found interesting to tell you more about during this event, because indeed is societal and is also about data protection. So today I'm going to tell you about the privacy by design in security technologies and services standardization activity. So let's start with the policy objectives. So what was the reason to start with this activity and how was it justified? So in the European Agenda on Security and the subsequent Security Union communication, it is stated that a competitive EU security industry can also contribute to the EU's autonomy in meeting security needs. The EU has encouraged the development of innovative security solutions, for example, through standards and common certificates. Also, in the 2012 communication on a security industrial policy, the action plan for an innovative and competitive security industry, especially the Action 8, foresees a better integration of the societal dimension into security industry activities to help reduce the uncertainty of societal acceptance. And also, it was put there that ensuring integration of privacy by design, privacy by default at early stages of design, development and production of security technologies. What was the underlying rationale? So why we decided to take care of that? We all know, we see the current situation that there is this increased demand for and use of security technologies and instruments to meet security threats and mitigate security risks. We know that there is this technological development, more ICT, process automatization. We all are currently, we see people with their smartphones using social media, using Facebook. We can see indeed that privacy, or as Rocco said, data protection, but then I will go further into details. So this as a societal value and a fundamental right risk being endangered by security demands. Why? Because more and more personal data is generated, collected, stored, shared, we say processed. Because there is this globalized nature of data flows. Because every single day, public life, so to say, expanded more and more into our private sphere. So we thought, and this was important to underline, that security solutions in line with fundamental rights and privacy protection and following appropriate regulations and legal restrictions will help meet customer demands because, well, it will help reduce intrusions into the privacy of an individual, and then at the same time can help increase size of the market. So indeed promote industry position to gain this competitive advantage. Now, I'm sure that all of you already heard many times about this privacy by design concept, data protection by design concept. I also heard about no harm by design, or yesterday I participated in an event about data protection. It was the 7th annual event about data protection, where the Commissioner Jourova, responsible for justice, She called it even privacy in mind, so something that should be constantly put in mind. So what it is, what it means in practice. Basically speaking, it means that each new system, be it a product, a technology, should take those values, those obligations into consideration. They should be embedded into systems in the early stages and then throughout entire life cycle. It also means that privacy-enhancing tools should be part of a design. They should take into account the potential negative consequences of a system's elements design. And system designers should understand the usual operational situations in which their systems will be deployed and also consider ways to avoid potential abuse. When we speak about privacy or data protection by design, automatically we think and speak about privacy and data protection by default, which means that the strictest privacy settings automatically apply once acquiring a new product or service, and no manual change to privacy settings should be required from the user. You may have heard that this privacy by design is an example of a value-sensitive design, which means that human values should be taken into account throughout the whole process. And it was first developed by Ontario's Information and Privacy Commissioner, Dr. Anne Cavoukian, in 1990s. Anne Cavoukian developed and said that there are 7 foundational principles, but maybe I will skip it because then I will not manage to tell you about the standard. So I will speed up a little bit. So I would like to focus on the examples of application areas where you may have privacy concerns. So basically security technologies that may be intrusive for our privacy. So first of all, the one that is the subject of our conference here is the CCTV video surveillance systems, which are very common in railways, airport, urban areas, commercial traffic control. Then biometric authentication, for example, face recognition, automatic number plate recognition, body scanners, or big data and data analytics. As Rocco already mentions, there is the legal framework which covers the data protection, which is the Charter of Fundamental Rights, Article 8, and Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, Article 16. But what is important for us, especially here in this particular activity, is the new data protection legal framework, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, because this new law provides provisions which impose obligations on the data controller and recognize rights to the data subject. And it also prescribes sanctions and remedies in cases of breach and establishes enforcement mechanisms to make them effective. Contrary to the previous directive, this new regulation ensures a single set of rules which will directly be applicable across the EU. The regulation was adopted already, but it will come into force in May, exactly on the 25th of May 2018. And it will bind in its entirety, and it will not have to be transposed into national law, and will adapt data protection to new technological developments. What is important is the Article 5, which says about, in general, how personal data should be processed fairly, collected for specified, explicit, and legitimate purpose. There should be this purpose limitation. It should be that the data should be adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary. We call it data minimization, accurate and kept up to date, and kept in a form which permits identification of a data subject for no longer than is necessary for the purpose for which the personal data are processed. This is called storage limitation. But what is the most important for us is the Article 29, which introduces for the very first time data protection by design and data protection by default. And they will be now the essential elements in EU data protection rules. And apart from that, it was already mentioned by my predecessor that there will be this risk-based approach, there will be impact assessments required, but anyway, by imposing this specific requirement for the first time, the new regulation gives specific recognition and links it to enforcement. So this is for the first time. Okay, and now I made this whole introduction just to give you an idea what was the background. But now, what we do exactly? So the European Commission mandated, so to say, or which means send a standardization request to European Standardization Organization, CENELEC and ETSI, in order to establish a future standard. There was a special joint working group established, which is called Joint Working Group 8, and the official title of the future standard is In Support of the Implementation of Privacy and Personal Data Protection Management in the Design and Development, Production and Service Provision Processes of Security Technologies and Services. This is very long, but it's been subject to an inter-service consultation. Many services added their kind of comments, so this should be the final version like that. And the future standard. So the idea here is that it will concern both processes in organizations, which is procedures, businesses, models, codes of conduct, and projects. It should provide voluntary tools to manufacturers and service providers to allow them to demonstrate to all those using their products and services that they were designed, developed, produced, and provided duly respecting privacy. This will help the security industry to comply with the data protection laws, the new laws, and to be more privacy-oriented. It should improve efficiency and social acceptance of EU's security-related products, mostly by creating, we hope, trust, and boost, of course, consumer confidence. So when developing the standards, the idea was also to take the inspiration, so to say, from the already existing, the international ISO 9001 quality management standard. So we would like a little bit to have some rules for privacy, be it a little bit like already existing in quality. So it can be, for example, organizations-wide commitment to privacy, ensuring that required resources and training are provided, authority, responsibility, and accountability for privacy management. But also, when designing a cooperation between engineers and ethical legal experts, making sure that, let's say, we can always say those two different worlds understand each other. It is always the case also both in our projects but also within the group established that we have already realized that when you really have on the one side people dealing with developing technologies, so engineers, and on the other side you have ethical, societal experts representing the societal value. In most cases, they do not understand each other. It is very difficult to, so to say, to translate between them those priorities that they would like, so to say, to sell in this particular moment. So what is a standard? What can be a benefit of a future standard? Normally, a standard sets out specifications, technical information for products, materials, services, and processes. It's a basis for mutual understanding among different stakeholders by facilitating communication, commerce, measurement, and manufacturing. It provides benefits to businesses and consumers because it's reducing costs, enhances performance, and improves safety. It also ensures the compatibility of different components, products, and services. It complements European and national policies and supports compliance with the relevant European legislation. So this standard would support compliance with the new data protection legislation, with the new data protection regulation. It is also a key instrument for consolidating the single market and facilitating cross-border trade, and it will help strengthening the competitiveness of European companies by creating the conditions for economic growth. So when it comes to a standard, normally you can have several deliverables. So a standard is made by deliverables. It can be one standard, several standards, it depends. But in the activity that we are dealing with, we plan to have let's say, an umbrella, a basic standard, which will provide privacy requirements to allow manufacturers, system developers, and service providers to implement and execute data protection and privacy by design and by default, including consideration of data subject rights and controllers' obligations, so something general. And then in further deliverables, we will explain how to do it. So there will be examples how those requirements can be covered in practice, and also examples on how manufacturers and service providers can implement data protection by design and by default at various stages of design and production. So far, because it is not possible to find a solution, one size that would suit all, so to say, we will focus on surveillance and on biometric access. So those two, so to say, security technologies that the experts will start with. Well, the work already started. It's a very difficult process because it's influenced by the internal process of the functioning of the standardization organizations. But anyway, the deadline for the final standard is January 2019. Well, and this is basically all from my side, but just to conclude, there was this idea of finding a balance between privacy or data protection and security, that by this activity and by all those discussions during this event, we would like to say that it's not even finding a balance, so not even to say that there shouldn't be a trade-off, because indeed we can have both, but by properly implementing laws, and I hope that by such activities and by having properly implemented new regulation, we can have even something more than balance. At least this is what the commissioner said, and this is what we do. Thank you.